On this day in history, 30 BC, Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt, committed suicide. I guess it's always been a little rough for the ladies. Just the other night, my friend told me she wanted to meet someone the old-fashioned way, so I offered sheep and land to a complete stranger on the condition he would take care of her. Live from Wattpad Nation, you're watching The Corner Booth. Welcome to our, 24th episode entitled Right the Right Kind of Wrong, and we have a fantastic panel for you tonight, and I really just want to dive into this because we have a really fun way, or like I said, a lot of these things I think are fun. Maybe other people might have different opinions about it, but for the high five, a way to introduce this panel, we have a little game we're going to play, and this is the first time that we've done anything like this. So let me get this all set up. As you can see down below, you have Miss Sarah Benson, Miss Rita Kovac, Miss Lindsay Lippincott, and Miss Jessica B. Fry, our special guest panelists that we are very excited to have today. Just to give you a little background on what I asked this panel to do, they were to send me 3 little things about themselves. Not all of them are included in this game, but for the sake of argument, they were to do this. Your favorite author, your hometown, your favorite fictional character. And so what I did is create a game, and it's called Crosswords. And this panel is going to buzz in when they know the answer. I'm going to share the first puzzle right now. Kaboom! Okay, so panel, as soon as you know the answer, just type in the word buzz, and hopefully it will let me see that. Hang on. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Can you still see the screen? Or do you see all the video as well as the screen?
I see. I can't see the bottom part.
The crossword.
Okay. All right. Well, I will read it off to you. Okay. So number 1 across. Author of a tale which goes there and back again. Number 2 down. City named after a Native American tribe and considered to be the main railroad station in Idaho's Magic Valley region. Is that Sarah? Okay. Sarah.
Look, I can't do my own though, right?
No, you can't. That's the thing. Like this, both clues, they're not yours. So, I mean, I know that one of them is, so it's kind of like I knew Sarah was gonna get the second one, but the first one. Okay, so you have to get them both in order to get the point.
Oh, both. Okay, I see how it works. Okay. So I'm assuming one must be Baggins.
Author of a tale, which goes there and back again.
Oh. So T-O-L-K, yeah, Tolkien.
Okay.
Okay,
and 2 down?
And 2 would be Shoshone.
Yes, and that is Sarah Benson's hometown. So she gets 1 point, and we're just collecting those points just for, just to collect points. We'll just give you a digital pat on the back. It'll be awesome. Okay, so we're going over to the second puzzle, which, let's see. Kablammy. 3 across, a female assassin who says, "We all bear scars, Dorian. Mine just happens to be more visible than most." 3 down, this author takes us through a mystery on the Orient Express.
Oh.
I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. If at any time
I know the first one.
Participate in our live chat. If you're watching this live, I think who do we have? Do we have Lucy Rhodes? That's the person that I saw.
Carl O'Connor too.
Carl O'Connor, what up, dude? We got those guys watching live. If at any time you're watching this broadcast live, you catch any one of them, you can actually go to the right of the video and participate in the chat, which I hope that you do. And if you are watching this as a recording, you can leave us a comment in the comment sections below, or at any time during the week, use our hashtag TCBWatt on Twitter. All right, Lindsay, I know that you know 3 across, so help us out. What's 3 across?
That one is Selena from Throne of Glass.
And Rita, what is 3 down?
It's Christie, as in Agatha Christie.
Yeah, that's very nice. Okay, so they're going to share that point. All right, this is the very last puzzle, so it's kind of like Sarah against the world. Number 4 across, you shall not pass. Number 5 down, she gave us Boo Radley. All right, Sarah.
All right, so Gandalf, 4 across,
Yeah.
and
Oh no.
No. I know she knows it.
She disappeared.
No. Okay, well, it is Harper Lee from Kill a Mockingbird. So, stop that. And we're going. Hello again. So, yes, while we're waiting for Sarah to come back, hopefully, that was a little fun for you, panel. We're going over to the best part of the broadcast, in my opinion. It is called Cream or Sugar. And why is it the best part of the broadcast? It's because it gives us a chance to put you, Wattpad Nation, in the spotlight. So, I am going to start with Ms. Rita Kovac. Who do you have for your Cream or Sugar shout-outs this week?
All right, thanks, Nat. My shout out today is to Angela Stevens, who goes by Angela Stevens 562 on Wattpad. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Angela personally twice now because we both live in the Washington, D.C. suburbs, and she's the only other person who's come to both the meetups that we've had over the last year. Angela's originally from the UK, and she's even lovelier in person than online. She's a very prolific writer, and she has several series, one of which is the Cocktail series, and this is a romance. But she has actually currently pulled her works off Wattpad because she's been self-publishing and is concerned about piracy. But she is thinking about bringing things back, especially new things. So I want to give her a shout-out to her Native American werewolf shapeshifter series, which she has out now. Book 1 of this trilogy is actually called The Wolf You Feed, and you can find it on Amazon this weekend for free. So if you have a Kindle or any other type of electronic device, you can download it for free and then read that first book of that series. And I hope you do get a chance to check out this book and anything new that Angela posts to Wattpad in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rita. Miss Lindsay Lippincott, well, who do you have for us?
I have Lynn S13 for A Court of Fairies. I think she may have gotten a shout out before, but I wanted to give her a shout out because I recently met her, started getting to know her when I became an ambassador, and then through Thomas's 5QI. So I had heard about her a few times, but I'd only, like I said, only started reading her recently. And so I've just barely scratched the surface of A Court of Fairies, but I'm sure that I'm going to be loving it. And she is a super awesome person.
Well, we like super awesome people here at the Corner
Yep.
Booth. They're always welcome to come on over. Sarah, welcome back. Who do you have for Cream or Sugar?
all right, so mine is E. Latimer with Frost. And yesterday I went over to her launch party, and it was a lot of fun. So that's pretty exciting that her book is now published. And so it's got over 10 million reads on Wattpad, and that's pretty exciting. So the story is, it's about a girl named Megan, and the story begins with her freezing the first boy she ever kisses. You can just imagine the girl dreaming up for the big day, and then that's the result that she had. And so it pretty much freaked her out. And she has no idea what happened, but life goes on, and you just kind of live with the not knowing. Well, she and her family moves to this tiny freezing town in Canada, and she goes to school and meets several other girls that look similar to her. They're tall, and they've got pale skin and white blonde hair, and all of them have either been adopted or living with family members. And so the leader of this group, thinks that this is just too much of a coincidence. There's something that's drawing them together to this little remote place. And anyway, that's kind of the mystery behind the story, like finding out what their identity is, and it brings in Norse mythology, which is fantastic. I love that, and I know that Jessica loves that and writes about that very, very well. And so anyway, it's fast-paced, it's super addicting. I am thoroughly enjoying what I've read so far. I picked it up on Amazon. You can get it in ebook or paperback. And Erin is just a fantastic Wattpadder, period. As probably a lot of people know, she's one of the Wattpad 4. Super friendly, generous, hilarious sense of humor. So totally get a chance to check her out, follow her, go onto Twitter, talk to her. She's just an amazingly neat person, and it's been a privilege getting to know her. So that's my person.
Awesome. Yes, Erin Latimer is fantastic. You can catch her every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, on Twitter using the hashtag Wattpad, the number 4. And they get together and talk about everything and anything that has to do with writing, and it's a lot of fun. They go for an hour, and man, that hour goes by really, really fast. Last but not least, for Cream or Sugar shoutouts, is our guest panelist, and we're so excited to have her. Her name is Jessica B. Fry, and that is her moniker on Wattpad. She is a 2014 Wattie Award winner that we have been just begging and begging and begging to come on a broadcast. And now that she's here, we're very excited. Hello, Jessica. Who do you have for us?
Hi. Well, for my cream, I have Carol McDonnell. She is a fantastic speculative fiction writer, and she's won a lot of awards from her writing. I think a couple of courses are even teaching her stories in their English departments. And I've been really privileged to get to know her, and she tells these fantastic stories, particularly Wind Follower. It's fantasy that really doesn't follow a lot of the typical tropes. She takes a lot of the expectations and just completely surprises you. So she is probably one of my all-time favorite fantasy writers who is still alive. So that's my cream. And then for my sugar is Flowers and Murders, and she has probably been one of my biggest supporters on Wattpad. She goes through and she reads everything that I write and always has something encouraging to say and has helped me to get through some very difficult times. And she's writing some really interesting stories right now, Beauties and Beasts and For King and Crown. And both of them are great starts that play with the fantasy genre and your expectations, and she's a very talented young writer.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jessica. Just to kind of elaborate on what I had introduced you with, Jessica is a coveted Wattie Award winner. She won last year, and this is just kind of a random question, and it's just because I'm fascinated by everybody's stories that have come on and shared theirs about their experience. The Watties is going on right now, I believe, until the third or tomorrow. They have their People's Choice Award. So anybody that has a story to share, the more shares that it gets on Twitter, I believe, you get an award for that. But for you, Jessica, can you explain a little bit of the experience of, what was the greatest thing about, finally getting that great stamp on your work?
The greatest thing about winning the Wattie was, it was a story that I actually finished, and it was self-contained, and I would not have been able to win the Wattie at all if I hadn't actually finished the story. I have a terrible habit of starting stories and adding layer upon layer and subplot upon subplot and always wanting to continue it. And the only way that I was able to finish it in time was to just stop the story and make it be done. So the Watties provided a fantastic incentive for finding the end to the story.
Yeah. I think that's a common struggle, just trying to get to the end. Not necessarily just entering the race, but finishing it. Absolutely. Yeah. That brings us to the portion of the broadcast which we call the entree, and it is just a series of questions on a topic that is selected not by this panel because they really don't have any say in it. I don't know why they keep coming back. It's terrible. But tonight's episode is entitled Write the Right Kind of Wrong. It is all about how to frame, how to create the perfect villain, that perfect little thing that always gets in the way of your protagonist. And how are we supposed to do it as writers? How do we make it better? Who should be inspiring us? So on and so forth. So going around that same little path that I took for Cream or Sugar, question number 1, what is your idea of a great villain? How do you get that on paper? Miss Rita.
Okay, well, the word villain to me brings to mind the skinny guy in a black cape and a top hat, twirling his thin mustache and cackling with a laugh. And this is actually what we need to avoid when we're creating in our writing. Villains can't be one-dimensional and just be token antagonists or evil characters. They need motivation, and they need to be more than just evil. I think the best type of villain is one we can imagine actually being good at some point, but there's something holding him back. He's the one we love to hate, but could also see ourselves rooting for. He's the opposite of any antagonists you'd actually find in a James Bond movie. You can think of those, Blofeld or whatever. It's Bond asks him, "Do you want me to talk?" "No, Mr. Bond, I want you to die." I mean, how cliche is that? Just very one-dimensional. So if you find yourself going in that direction with a character, stop and rethink it. The reason your villain is in the way of your protagonist also has to make sense. So to write a great villain, it actually has to be logical. You can't just give him a blanket goal like ruling the world or killing someone. Greed and hatred aren't clear enough motivators. So your villain should have just as a complex backstory as your main character does. And finally, I think a villain should be memorable in some way, so make him unique without being over the top.
There's a lot of balance into that. I mean, being memorable versus like going way too far. And yeah, absolutely, that's great advice. Miss Lindsay.
I agree quite a bit with what Rita had to say. So basically, like what I had is when you're creating a villain, you need to create someone who's bad for a reason. There's multiple different reasons that you can go through. You have the revenge for a lost love. Maybe they're trying to do something good for the city, but the way they're going around it is just the wrong way. But they have to have a reason. You just, like she was saying, you don't have a bad guy just to be the bad guy. So like the best villain is the one that your readers or your viewers can actually feel for. So think Fisk from Daredevil or Khan from Star Trek Into Darkness.
Of course, you had to throw that in there, didn't you?
Yep.
You had to get Khan in there, of course.
Yep.
You have a strange obsession with that character, I think.
Oh, not the character.
Revealing. Compliment. How lucky you are. Miss Sarah Besson, what do you got for us?
Yeah, just along the lines of what Rita and Lindsay said, I read somewhere online that that people don't want villains that they can sympathize with, and I 100% disagree with that, actually, because I think that villains ought to be complex, and their motivations shouldn't be totally black and white, and I think that at some point, you do somewhat want to root for, even if you don't agree with their methods, you should understand where they're coming from with their actions. And so I believe often, like, we've heard this so many times, no terrorist thinks that they're a terrorist, and I think no villain thinks that they're a villain. And they have reasons for what they're doing, and those reasons are pure in their minds, but their methods start to fall into the gray and sometimes very black areas. And so I think these are some of the marks of a good villain. One, there has to be a driving motivation that usually becomes an obsession. And that is what kind of propels the story forward through the end, that drives their actions. Revenge often fits into that. It shouldn't simply be revenge, but it should be that there is something that is motivating them to be evil, I guess. So a good example of that would be Jean Valjean in Les Miserables. So in the story, he's a thief who stole bread to save his starving family. So he's put into prison for the crime, and when he escapes, he is tempted to go back into that life that he's branded as this person, a thief. Well, he has an experience where he is given the chance for redemption, and he ends up taking it. And so when he attempts to escape this life and this branding and start a new life, the police inspector, Javert, discovers him and then becomes obsessed with bringing him to justice. And what's very interesting to me about this story is we have this dynamic in which the world brands Valjean as a villain, and Javert, who is the police, is the good guy. But we get to this point where we're left to wonder who the true villain is. Is it the one who broke the rules of society, or the one who, in the name of justice, won't allow a person to change? And so I just love that the dimension and the dynamic that happens there. So I think another good mark of a villain is that obsession. That obsession will eventually lead to the villain's downfall. I think that is pretty much a commonality. For example, Darth Vader when we get to his pre-story. We find out that his revenge for his mother's death and then fear of losing his wife are the very things that lead to actions that cause him to cause the thing that he feared would happen to happen. So I mean, it's almost, I think that fear does very much play into villains. And then another thing that I love about villains is when they're unpredictable, when they're ruthless, and I love a villain that I love to hate. So another good example is the Joker. He was so good because he was so difficult to understand. His motivation wasn't obvious. Money couldn't tempt him. He couldn't be manipulated. You never knew. You couldn't predict him. You never knew what he was going to do. And so I think that adds an extra edge of layer or danger to his character and makes him just totally fascinating villain. So I think unpredictability is a fabulous trait within villains as well.
You couldn't be more right. I mean, it's fantastic, and I think Alfred is the one who says, some men just want to watch the world burn, and that's just
it's a good line.
Sadistic and just amazingly awesome. It's just so much stuff. I mean, The Dark Knight's always going to be one of my favorite movies. Miss Jessica Fry, what do you got for us?
Oh, I love a good villain. In fact, for me, a story often rises and falls based on the villain. If you have a great villain, you probably have my interest. And whether or not the villain needs to be fully developed, I think generally yes, though I would say there are some stories where a two-dimensional or one-dimensional villain works all right, but those are not the majority of the stories, and you have to know your audience if you're going to have that kind of a villain. Snidely Whiplash is the classic for that, and he served his purpose in that type of a story. But as far as the villain goes, I think that the greatest villains are the villains in which we see ourselves. It's part of what makes them so easy to hate, because we're repulsed by the things that we do wrong or the things we don't want to recognize about ourselves. And oftentimes the villain is sometimes a mirror of where the hero might wind up or where we ourselves might wind up if we're not careful. And that's going to require, obviously, that backstory, as all of the other panelists have pointed out, showing how did the villain get to this point and what choices did they make. But the other thing with that is I think that there's sometimes that temptation with when you get too deep in the villain's backstory to make them all wonderful and look, this could be you, this is someone who we care for. And then just because they're the hero in their own mind, and maybe they think they're the heroes, it doesn't mean that they're just misunderstood and need a hug and we can all get along. Sometimes there's going to be those chronic differences. And having a villain who's willing to ask those hard questions of the hero is fantastic. With a villain, you don't have to worry about political correctness. They can be completely atrocious, rude, and then charming, and people still love them. It's a lot easier to make a likable villain sometimes than a likable hero. So, yeah, by the time all is said and done, I think your greatest villains are the people that we see ourselves in, and they have so much potential to be developed and to be turned into these very human characters. They're not the least human, they're actually the most, and they drive the story. And sometimes I think we as writers get our neuroses out with our villains. They get to do and say the things that we wish that we could do, and we grow from that as well.
It's a way to get back at all those bullies from high school. It's just like,
Yes.
I know you picked on me in high school, so you're going to be a villain in my next story.
It's right. The hero has to forgive them, and the villain gets to go do whatever to the bully.
Exactly, and I think you brought up like a really, really great point in the fact that the villains aren't, it's not the layer of humanism that needs to be completely devoid of them. It's the fact that they are the most human. They are the most flawed. They just have these crazy things that tear them apart from, okay, well, this is a nice guy, but he kills puppies, or I don't know. I mean, there's a layer that you add.
Never forgive that.
There's a layer that you add that just has to make the person reprehensible, which, yeah, absolutely. We did get a question from Miss Lucy Rose. Thank you so much for asking. Any advice on remaking your main character their own villain, i.e. for a character-driven story? Lindsay, do you got something for that?
Yeah, so I kind of clarified, and so she was talking about how, like, your main character gets in their own way. And, I mean, I guess there are more extreme ways that you can do it, but an easy way to do it is to just have your main character who has their goal, but then going about the wrong way to get it. So, like, you have the main character who needs to do this, but she trusts all the wrong people and doesn't trust the people that she should. Or she or he is trying to accomplish something, but the way that they do it causes a bigger problem that they then have to get out of. So basically, someone who makes wrong decisions and then along the way realizes what they're doing wrong or whatever and somehow tweaks what they're doing, and I guess in the end I mean, maybe she fails horribly and dies, but I mean, you could have it where it's happy and they're good and everything works out.
Yeah. It seemed like you were almost describing like any single girl's night in a bar.
Yeah,
Like, you go in there, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. I don't know. Maybe you need to make a change. Maybe you need to stop taking Jaeger bombs and drink some vodka tonic or something. I don't know. Sorry, I'm digressing. On to question number 2. What's more fun for you, writing a crisis or a solution, and why, Miss Rita?
Well, I'm a problem solver by nature, so I think writing a solution is more fun for me. But of course, that doesn't mean that I don't like to get my characters into seemingly dire situations and predicaments. However, it's fairly easy to drop your leading lady into the flooded hull of a ship and let loose a mangy-haired pirate. It's a lot harder to write how she'll get out of there unscathed. But to do this, I always think of the most logical and rational scenario. Then I do something completely different because I want my readers to be surprised. So my first ideas in these instances are rarely the final ones.
It's interesting. Thank you, Rita. Miss Lindsay.
I enjoy both of them equally. I can't pick.
So indecisive. Jeez,
I
you're such a
know.
college student. Like,
I know. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? Anyways, so I have, like, in the case of writing witches, because that's, like, my main focus, kind of, I can write my character into some like, deep pits, but that also means that over the course of the book, the character can grow, and I can give her some freaking amazing kick-ass powers. So, yeah. That's pretty much why.
well, I mean, I totally agree. Like, hey, chick, it's just, oh yeah, vulnerable. Come on, powers. It's gonna be it'll all be good. Miss Sarah.
Well, I think coming up with solutions is more satisfying, but it's a lot more work, like Rita said. And so, absolutely, I go for crisis for fun because I think that most writers have to be somewhat sadists because of what they put their characters through. I don't know. I do.
Yeah,
I
between you and Rita, like, I've read both your work, and you guys put your characters in some messed up situations.
I don't know why I find so much fun in like thinking up ways to torture my characters, but I do. And like totally like, oh my goodness, if I did this, I would totally amp up the emotion here. Oh my goodness, what would they think if this happened? And I totally do this stuff when I write, and I love it. So yes, I have a great amount of fun coming up with crisis. And and I think that the crisis is also like so pivotal to a story, especially the overarching crisis that fits into an entire book or series. And so an example of that was when I was coming up with my initial crisis. That was kind of the catalyst for the story for Born of Shadow. I had my character Zaina, and so I was trying to think through, well, what I know what needs to happen. Somehow this. We're going to kind of launch this series of events that's going to be pretty devastating. Now, who's going to do it, and how, and how's that going to play in? So I had my character Zaina, and what's her motivation? Well, she's stealing these artifacts, and from archaeological dig, and not because she's a common thief or she's trained in this, but because she needs medicine to save her mother's life. Okay, so. In the process, she shatters the jar, unleashes the great evil, and we set up our overarching crisis and the conflict for the entire series. And it's then the fun comes because you're going to just like play with how this crisis has set up this obsession, and how you're going to like go back and forth between the different dynamics and the different characters to somehow resolve this crisis that you set up. So yeah, I absolutely love doing this part, and also the mini crisis that happen within, and they come very easy to me, and I think that that's why it's fun. But as for the solutions, and I loved Rita's point about, don't go with the obvious solution, like come up with something maybe that they're not expecting, and because that makes your story so much more satisfying. Then you can like work on that solution into things.
Oh yeah, of course. And I think it also gives you, a fairly distinct story as well. But just like as a random question, do you ever have like a dream where your characters are coming after you because of all the crap you put them through? I mean, that would be kind of terrifying. Just, oh yeah, you want to do that to me? Think about it? You better run a happy ending, like right now.
I would have nightmares every night, Nat.
And you just put it on paper, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Fine, just argue with me.
That's a different problem, Lindsay. That's a different problem. Jessica, what do you got for us?
Oh, well, I'd like to say that I enjoy coming up with the solution, but my favorite part is causing chaos and torture.
You writers are crazy!
Exactly! I mean, and my dad always gave me such a hard time when I was a kid because he kept asking me, why are you doing this? I thought you liked your characters. And I do, but I also like this story, and so I've got giant spiders, which I'm terrified of, and, getting trapped in a crushing room, all of these things, and more, and, of course, the emotional drama. Personally, I just think it's a lot more fun when you're building up that chaos and that devastation, and, you give them the 1, 2, 3 punch, you just give them enough hope to keep them coming back and breathing before you shoot them up the next hill and drop them down. And it's wonderful. I love that. So I have found the hard part is bringing it all back together and finding the solution, because sometimes I get bored with that and I want to cause more chaos in my characters' lives. Sometimes I just identify with my villains, but that's another issue. And what I found that has helped me a lot is I do a reverse story outline. So every time I write a chapter that has a twist or something, I write it down, and if I come up with something strange or weird that needs to be explained, that goes there, and then when I'm at the point where I'm pretty sure my readers can't take anymore, I sit down and I try to figure out how is it all going to come together, and I start outlining from there. And that's helped me a lot because, sometimes when you're just throwing it on your characters and throwing it on your characters, you forget, oh, that's right, there was a trap door that led down to a 3-headed dog that eats people's souls. I kind of need to do something with that. But, yeah, and also I have had that nightmare. I've had a nightmare that I got trapped in this old abandoned house with all of my villains. And that was not pleasant.
I'm sure it wasn't. Yeah, especially, okay, the thing is, like, I mean, there's that one kind of, I don't know, it's over a campfire kind of question where it's just like, what if you were omnipotent for a day? And I'm really hoping that none of you are ever omnipotent for a day, because it's kind of like, hey, you know what? These are nice people, but I'm going to watch them suffer. Like, just a test a character. They don't know where the story is going, but it's always good to watch them squirm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, on to question number 3. Who's your all-time favorite bad guy? How did they beat up the rest of the competition? Miss Rita.
Okay, I'm going to use one from Outlander and say Captain Jack Randall, who is one villain that I truly love to hate. The author Diana Gabaldon wrote him to be a man who could have easily been just a great soldier, but his backstory and his personality with his sadistic tendencies stemming from repressed sexual feelings just pushed him over the edge, especially with relation to one of the main characters, Jamie Fraser. So just when you think he can't get any worse, he does, and you find yourself happy anytime that he's foiled. But then again, there are periodic hints of his, almost regret, kind of loneliness, which make the reader just teeter on the edge of sympathy for him. So I think this is why he's a great villain.
Absolutely. Rita, there's something that was kind of interesting that Carl O'Connor said on the live chat. He said, "I like to dig holes and just let it work itself out." Is that something that you agree with or not? Because I know you love writing conflict, and I know that you really do give a lot of thought to your plotting, and especially when it comes to suspense and things like that. Is that something that you're ever faced with, where you're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna see how far this can go before I hit pay dirt?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it just depends on what story it is. The gothic horror which I wrote on Wattpad called The Keepers, I kind of pantsed it, and that really involved digging some holes and not really knowing where I was going to end up, and in that it kind of worked. I mean, I did kind of know the overall ending about what was going to happen, but it was, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it was in a way where I could have basically done anything in that book and still ended up in the same place. So because of that worked. But if you have a more intricate mystery where a lot of different strings had to come together, then that may be a little too hard to manage without having a more complex outline already, or kind of ideas of what you want to do.
Right.
So, but I mean, it's an interesting experiment because it kind of lets you be a little more creative, and you may come up with certain things that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So it's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah, I'm sure that it forces you in situations that you never thought you'd ever be in. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I try to experiment with it, Carl, and let us know how it goes. Miss Lindsay.
All right, so as we kind of established earlier, and as I said before the broadcast, my favorite villain is Khan, the new Khan. And how does he beat up the rest of the competition?
By being Cumberbatch, by being that guy.
He's Benedict freaking Cumberbatch. So yeah, that voice, those tears, so much love.
You are such a college student. Like, okay, so the first time that I met Lindsay, I was just like, wow, this is like a really, really nice, genuine, smart person. And then, like, the more that I get to know her, it's just like, you get those, like, those moments where it's just like, oh, I keep forgetting that you are a college student. And then there are some reminders where it's just kind of like, probably like above her bed, like on the stairs. Whatever, it's fine. Such a girl.
At least I don't try to deny it. At least I admit it.
Yeah, well, you do own it very well. Yes, I will give you that. Yeah, it's fine. Miss Sarah.
Nat, if you go online, you'll find that this Benedict Cumberbatch obsession is not, just college girls.
No, I know. It stands for it. Well, see, that's that. All right, and that was one of the things that kind of concerned me about the whole Harry Styles craze, was the fact that there were middle-aged women that were all about this kid, and I was, are you serious? He's closer to your daughter. There are certain things that kind of concern me.
Yeah, I was kind of the Edward syndrome too from Twilight. Yeah, I was a little different.
Yeah, Sarah, stop! Don't harm your respect that I have.
Oh no, I'm not saying me per se. Well, maybe.
Yeah. There was a lot of truth in that statement.
Now she's trying to back out.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
I'm just saying, there's a lot of love for Benedict online.
Yes.
Anyway, okay, so my all-time fave bad guy. So I asked my husband, I was just curious what he would say, and he said Jar Jar Binks, because he's just so bad.
Oh.
Which I thought was a funny answer. I loved it.
That is awesome.
But, okay, so then I thought, I covered some that I really like that are really like the sadistic type, Joker and whatnot. So I came up with another one, and this is a different type of bad guy that I actually really enjoy. And one of my favorites is Mad Mardigan from Willow. He, you look at this guy from the outset, and you think there's not much to admire other than he's good looking. He's got loose morals. He's a thief. He's a con man. In order to escape the cage he's been left to rot in, he'll do anything, including promise to take care of a baby that he promptly loses. But even despite all of his flaws, and he has many, there's just something about his charm and audacity that just draws me in. He's funny. He fancies himself to be a better ladies' man than he actually is, so there's a lot of humor involved. And despite like all the obstacles he faces and all the ways he's humbled, he just never loses that swagger and that inner confidence. And so that's why I think he beats the competition.
Mm-hmm. That was very nice. I love it. Miss Jessica.
Well, this was really hard because there's a lot of villains who I really, really like. But I decided to go back to the very first villain that actually terrified me as a child. And it ended up real, and it was kind of funny because the first villain who ever really scared me when I was a kid reading was actually Loki from the Poetic Edda. And I was sitting in bed and I was reading this book, except I kind of dozed off. I was like 5 years old and I wasn't supposed to even be reading at night, and I had the flashlight, and it was this book of basically villains from mythology. And so in one night I read about Loki, Arachne, the Cyclops from the Odyssey, and all of these characters. And when I fell asleep, I just compiled them all into one villain that I thought was Loki. And for the longest time, I wanted nothing to do with Norse mythology because it scared me.
How old were you when you were reading this? Seriously.
5 years old.
You were reading Norse mythology at 5 years old?
Yes, I was. Didn't have
all the
good
books that I was reading at that age, they rhymed. So, and they had a lot of pictures.
It gave me horrible nightmares for the longest time. And so that's why actually part of the reason I started studying Norse mythology was partially to move past this fear. And the Loki character is always one that you know will be interesting, no matter what. And sometimes it goes from the absolutely horrific villain of trickery and deception, and then other times, like, no, I'm not really sure that that's a villain. That's just someone who's on the wrong side of the story. But I had to pick a second one, though, for the villain I most despise and who I would do violent things to if I ever met, and that is the Nurse Ratched type villain. The villain who thinks that she's doing what's best for you. And, oh, it makes me so angry, because how do you reason with that? There's no fun banter. There are no daring escapes because this person wants to suffocate the life out of you. So that would be the other villain that, oh, I can't stand. They don't show up in my story. I have too many issues with that villain.
Okay, so like when you discovered like the second archetype of villainy, how old were you when you discovered that?
I was in college when I read One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest.
Okay, because I was just like, man, you were a really advanced reader, and you're reading Norse mythology at age 5. Just like, oh, for your 6th birthday, I got this book by a guy named Steven, and it's called It. Ooh, this looks good.
Yeah, it was so funny. My parents kept trying to figure out, why does she have nightmares? We don't let her watch TV. Where are the nightmares?
Because you give her like hideous books of like really scary things. Like,
yeah,
oh man.
That was my grandfather, actually. My parents had no idea what I was reading. It was just this old leather-bound type book. It looked really good, actually. They had no clue.
So parents, like, even if you have a 5-year-old, you might want to like see if they're like pulling a Jessica Fry. I don't know.
Just because it's classic doesn't mean it's harmless.
That's very true. Very, very true. All right, folks, we're going over to the portion of the broadcast called Pass the Salt, and it's just where our panel gives you a little honesty in the form of a quote, a factoid, an observation, in 140 characters or less. Miss Rita, what do you got for us this week?
Okay, so my Pass the Salt this week relates to kind of the topic of the night, and it's every character could be the protagonist and should be the protagonist in his own story, even the villain.
Excellent, I love it. Miss Lindsay.
All right, so mine is actually kind of similar to hers. So I have, remember, villains are the heroes of their own stories. And like whenever I picture this, I always picture like the villain like stomping around like a dramatic teenager. Like when the main character like gets in their way and like, why are you getting in my way?
That's awesome. That should be your best song. Why are you getting in the way? It's going to go up there with the classics like Don't Be Dirt. That's a callback, kids. Sarah, what do you got for us?
Okay, so I thought about doing one as from a villain point of view, but then I just felt like kind of taking a different direction this time. So I've just this week been having, that inner critic come out that we talked about previous here and there, and in an effort to, psych myself out or whatever. So anyway, I came up with this all as just some bit of advice to give myself, and maybe someone else could use it too. So here's mine. Your best effort is good enough. Relax, keep writing, and trust the story will come.
I love it. Thank you, Sarah. Miss Jessica.
Well, mine was fun because I'm verbose, so I had to tighten it down. So this is what I came up with. In all villains lies the truth of what we may be if we aren't careful. The villain is not the least human, he is the most.
I think your parents took offense to that. He took offense to that comment.
He did.
That is why Jessica Fry is a Waddy Award winner, because she writes Past the Salt just like that, which is amazing. We're going over to the wrap-up of the broadcast, which is called Check Please, and it's just a little time for us to give you a little, not only a summary of what we've been talking about, which we hope that you're taking a lot of takeaways away. If you have any questions about what we're talking about tonight or on any other broadcast, please do not hesitate to either find us on Twitter, use Wattpad to get a hold of us. We do have a thread on the forums. You can get in touch with any of these panelists individually, and I assure you they will get back to you. They love helping out fellow Wattpadders, because that's all of the experience right there. So I do kind of want to touch base on a few things. We have about 13 minutes left. Miss Sarah and Jessica Fry are a part of something called the Wattpad class of 2014, and
also Lindsay.
And Lindsay, yes. Sorry, you were just quiet. But they're a part of this amazing group. Sarah and Jessica, I'm just going to and Lindsay, I'm going to go around if you guys want to tell a little bit about what you guys are doing, how you guys are doing it, what you're offering to Wattpad Nation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nat. So we are working, we've got a profile up finally for the Wattpad class 2014. And the idea behind it is we just want to kind of give back to the community that's given so much to us. And so far what we've done is we have a book basically to just help writers out, tips, tricks, things that they can do to help them become more effective writers, to market their writing, to do things along those lines. And so we have a few articles so far. One is about forming groups on Wattpad. Another one, David Farland wrote a guest post for us. And if you don't know who he is, he just recently joined Wattpad, and he is a New York Times bestselling author, and also was a teacher to a few people that you may have heard of, Brandon Sanderson, Stephanie Meyer, James Dashner, Brandon Mole, and several others as well. And so anyway, he wrote this great post for us on effective storytelling. And and then Jessica wrote the latest post on contests. And we're planning to just give a lot more articles like this. A lot will be written by the members of the class. But also we are opening this up to the entire Wattpad community. So if you have something that you want to contribute to this, or if you're part of a group that would like to work with our group, we would love to hear from you. Just go over to our profile and go to our tips and tricks book and go ahead and let us know, or just send us a message, either to that account or to at Jessica B. Fry or at Sarah Benson Books, and let us know what it is that you have to offer the Wattpad community, and we'd love to collaborate with you guys. So a second book that we have going right now is just basically reviews of things that we find very noteworthy. I'm going to pass that off to Jess. She's been basically leading that one up, and she can maybe tell you more about that.
Awesome. Jessica, what can you tell us about?
Okay, well, part of the purpose of the reviews is going to be to share some of the books of the Wattpad class of 2014, but also, even more importantly, community books, some people in the Wattpad community who have completed works. And we've got a few that are getting ready to be posted up. I try to give an analysis on those, and if people have recommendations for a well-written story that is complete and up in full on Wattpad, that is not written in text speak and is written in English, then they're welcome to shoot me a message or to put it on the WPC 2014 message box to let me know what's going on. And we're just trying to find some great books to recommend to other people to read and keep them coming back for more great stories.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Jessica. Lindsay, you got anything to add?
Nope, they pretty much covered it.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, Lindsay is heading up this little thing. We do a corner booth contest shortly after the 10th episode. We did one. After the 20th, we're doing another one. And this is just something that I thought of by, I don't know, random, and my brain is weird. But because the way that the contest works is that you do not enter it, somebody else nominates you in order to be a part of the contest. From now on, we're going to call this contest the Nom 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 contest. And the winner will get a little stamp on their book. I'll manipulate a JPEG image, and it will say, Certified Delicious. Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about, give us an update on what we got going on right now?
Yeah, so the top 4 were picked, and they were sent off to Kelly. So Kelly Ann Blount will be going over those, and then she will be giving me her top pick, and then the top 4 will all have an interview in our contest book, and then the grand prize winner will get an interview in there as well, but as some Wattpad swag as well to go along with it. So I don't know if you want me to share the top 4 that we have, or if we want to.
Well, we'll save it. We'll save it for our.
All right.
Because I think that'll be a nice little zing at the very end. So thank you, Lindsay, for everything that you do with that contest. I know that it's a boatload of work. And to kind of close this out, I do want to tell you about the Just Write It program that is available to you on Wattpad. It's a challenge to write 10,000 words in 30 days. You take a pledge using just the Wattpad interface. You can use the mobile app or the one that's available to you online. For the Waddies 2015, they are actually creating a Waddy Award specifically for the Just Write It program. So during the month of September, if you take the pledge, which I strongly advise that you do, and anybody, okay, let me finish this thought, and then I'll get to the next thought. Anybody who enters it during the month of September and I guess gets to the 10,000 word mark will be entered into this little award that they have, this special new one that they got going on for the Waddies. So it should be pretty exciting. If you are taking the pledge tomorrow, or I guess it would technically be September 1st, at midnight, look at our hashtag on Twitter, which is TCBWatt, and I have a little surprise for you. So check it out, and hopefully you guys get really excited about it. I'm really excited about it, but I'm excited fairly easily. But anyways, I do want to thank every single person who tunes in live, who watch these broadcasts, recordings. You've made this an unbelievable experience for not only me, but everybody on the panel and the people who rotate and the guests and everything like that. I know that they've loved hearing from you and all of your little feedback and takeaways that you share with us and let us know that you really enjoy what we're doing here. That being said, we are doing one more broadcast, which will be our 25th episode. We will take 2 weeks off, and then we will come back at you with Season 2, which is the last Sunday of September. And this is the, I usually don't make a big deal about this because I'm just not a fan of the day in particular. But this week, I will be turning 30, which will be Wednesday. So I do want to just kind of give out a little challenge to everybody because I think it would be something really, really cool. On Wednesday, September 2nd, which is when I turn the big 3-0, if you would please buy somebody, just a random person, a drink. It could be a cup of coffee, it could be a soda, it could be an alcoholic beverage if you are of age, and just feel part of that story. I think one of the greatest things about your life experiences are the fact that you have the ability to change somebody else's life any given day. And I'm hoping that these broadcasts are doing that for at least your writing life. That was the whole goal, was to make a difference in writers that use this amazing site called Wattpad. So that being said, we are tying this up. Episode 24. Congratulations, ladies. We made it through, and now we have a full day of Corner Booth episodes available on YouTube. So with that being said, same time, same great channel next week, 6:30 Eastern, 6:30 Eastern, Eastern Standard Time. It's been a really long day, people. But we hope to see you then. Please subscribe to our channel. We have broken the 300 mark, so thank you to everybody who subscribed. And panel, if you would just please say goodnight.
Good night.
Night.
Hey guys, thanks for watching.
Night. Glad you could come.